My stepdaughter sneered. "You'll never know what it feels like to be a real dad." When I called her out, my wife smirked and said, "You deserve it." I quietly packed my things that night. None of them saw what was coming next. Hello Reddit I plus here. I never thought a single sentence, spoken by a teenager whose life I'd funded, supported, and held together for 8 years, could cut deeply enough to change the entire direction of my life. But it did. When I married Renee, she was a widow, raising a 10-year-old girl named Harper. I was 38, a quiet contractor with a decent business, a stable life, and more patience than anyone in my family thought was normal. Renee was vibrant, charming, always in motion. She pulled me into her orbit with the kind of enthusiasm that makes you feel chosen. And Harper, well, she was silent in that brittle way kids get when they've been hurt by the world and don't trust happiness. I didn't want to replace her dad. I made that clear from day one. "I'm just here to help however you need," I told her gently the first week I moved in. She nodded without looking at me. I thought it was a start. Turns out, it was simply the beginning of years I would spend convincing myself that progress was happening, even when it wasn't. The first couple of years were fine. Harper kept her distance, but she wasn't openly hostile. I went to school meetings with Renee, fixed broken cabinet doors, helped with homework when Harper allowed it. I didn't force anything. When Harper turned 13, she began treating me like an unwelcome guest who refused to leave. A slammed bedroom door here, muttered him when referring to me. A rolled eye when I reminded her to do chores. Renee always had an excuse ready. She's adjusting. She misses her dad. She's just being a teenager. But every year, the excuses felt more like permission. I brushed it off. I told myself she'd grow out of it. I stayed steady, believing consistency mattered, but you can be consistent in the wrong environment and not realize the damage until years have passed. Harper wanted to join band, so I paid for lessons. She needed dental work, my money. Her laptop died before finals, my card. Her school trip to New York, my signature on the check. Renee used to thank me, used to. Eventually, my support became part of the landscape. Expected, unnoticed, as ordinary as the couch cushions or the water bill. I kept trying anyway. One night when Harper was 16, she came home crying about a late assignment and a breakup. Renee was watching TV and didn't get up. Instead, she called out from the couch, "Can you go talk to her, babe? You're better with emotional stuff." So I did. I sat with Harper for 2 hours. She spoke in fragments, half rage, half grief. I listened, nodded, reassured. She didn't thank me. She never would. But I was proud of myself. Looking back, that might have been the saddest part. It was a Tuesday evening when the house finally tipped. Harper was 18, newly accepted into the university she wanted. I'd already paid the deposit. The textbooks were on my credit card. Her dorm essentials were stacked in my office. She came home angry because she couldn't find her phone charger. I told her to lower her voice, straightforward, calm. She spun around, eyes sharp, and said, "You're not my parent. You'll never know what it's like to be one, so stop pretending you have authority over me." The room went silent. My chest tightened like a door slamming shut. Before I could react, Renee walked in from the kitchen. She'd heard it. All of it. And instead of correcting her daughter, she smirked. Actually smirked and said, "Well, you kind of brought this on yourself." That was the moment the world shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet understanding settling into my bones like cold water. They didn't see me. They had never seen me. And worse, they didn't respect me. Not as a man, not as a partner, not as the person who carried every financial burden they never thanked me for. I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I didn't break. I simply walked out. I sat in my truck with the engine off, staring at the front porch light, the same one that had flickered for months until I finally replaced it. Harper had complained. Renee had nagged. I fixed it. No one said thank you. It was such a small memory. But in that moment, it summarized 8 years perfectly. I had been a servant with a title they never intended to honor. I sat there for 45 minutes, thinking through every moment I had excused, softened, forgiven. Each one was a thread. That night, the whole braid unraveled. When I finally walked back inside, the house was dark except for the bedroom light leaking under the door. Renee was in bed, her back to me, scrolling her phone. She didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask anything at all. So I walked to the guest room, lay down on the hard mattress, and stared at the ceiling. That wasn't anger. It wasn't heartbreak. It was clarity. And clarity is the most dangerous thing a neglected man can have. I woke before dawn with a hollow calm in my chest. I got dressed, made coffee, sat at the dining table, and waited. Harper came downstairs first. She froze when she saw me, probably expecting a lecture. Instead, I said nothing. Renee arrived 10 minutes later, still groggy. "What are you doing up so early?" she asked. I slid an envelope across the table. She frowned. "What's this?" "My decision," I said. She opened it. Inside were 2 sheets of paper. A financial breakdown showing every expense I had covered for 8 years. Mortgage, schooling, groceries, braces, repairs, vacations, all of it. A separation agreement drafted by a lawyer I'd contacted at 3 a.m. Renee's face went pale. "You're leaving?" "I am," I said. "Today." Harper's mouth dropped open. "You can't just—" I held up a hand. "I can. And I am. I won't keep investing in a family that doesn't acknowledge I'm part of it." Renee sputtered, angry now. "So you're abandoning us?" "Abandonment," I said quietly, "requires a presence someone wanted. You made it clear last night. There's no place for me here." Her silence was confirmation. Harper looked confused. "But who's paying for school?" I turned to her the way someone turns toward a stranger. "Not me." She swallowed hard. For the first time in 8 years, she looked afraid. I moved into a small apartment that same afternoon. Within a week, Harper's university called about non-payment. Renee called crying, asking me to reconsider. Her sister texted accusing me of being heartless. They tried guilt, anger, bargaining. But I was done. Once a man reaches clarity, there is no going back. Harper eventually emailed me. Not to apologize, but to demand I resume financial support. I didn't reply. They learned something important. You cannot treat someone as invisible and still expect their wallet to remain visible. Months later, I heard through mutual contacts that Renee had to sell the house, Harper had to defer university. The bills they never thanked me for became storms they couldn't keep up with. And me? I slept peacefully for the first time in years, because sometimes the greatest act of love you can give yourself is walking away from people who mistake your presence for permanence. Some families are built on blood, some are built on love, but some are built on convenience. And the moment convenience ends, the truth steps into the light. I finally stepped into mine. The day I left, I expected everything to collapse immediately for Renee and Harper. But life doesn't work like a movie. What happens instead is slow unraveling, quiet, humiliating, undeniable. Let me tell you how it unfolded. My phone stayed silent for 5 days. Then the calls began, all from Renee. At first, the tone was soft, almost syrupy. "Hey, can we talk? This isn't like you. You're overreacting. Come home so we can work this out." Work what out? Her daughter humiliating me? Her smirk while it happened? On day 9, the sweetness evaporated. "You're ruining our lives. Do you even care? Harper is stressed because of you. She can't focus. She doesn't know how she's going to start university." I didn't respond. I was done being their solution. By week 3, I had settled into my new apartment. Small, quiet, peaceful. I didn't realize how accustomed I'd become to walking on eggshells until the silence felt safe. Then one evening, a knock on my door. I opened it to find Harper standing there, eyes rimmed red, shoulders tense. She wasn't crying, not yet. But she looked like someone whose world wasn't turning the direction she expected. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside. She entered like she owned the space, out of habit. But she quickly realized something. Here, she owned nothing. She sat stiffly on the couch. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she muttered. "You told me I wasn't a parent," I replied calmly. I listened. She swallowed, but her pride kept her spine straight. "I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it?" She had no answer. After a long silence, she tried the angle I expected. "Mom said you'd still help me with school. You're just upset, right?" I shook my head. "I'm not punishing you. I'm choosing myself. I didn't ask you to take care of me all those years." "That's true," I said. "But you didn't treat me like someone who chose to either." For the first time in our entire relationship, she had no comeback. Her face crumpled. Not in guilt, but in fear. "Are you really not paying?" she whispered. "I'm not." Tears formed instantly. Real ones. Not manipulative ones. She wiped them aggressively, like crying was failing. "I worked hard to get in," she said bitterly. "I deserve to go. And you will," I said gently. "Just not on my credit card." She stood abruptly, anger flooding in to replace vulnerability. "You're heartless," she snapped. But it came out shaky, weak, unconvincing. I didn't respond. She stormed out. But that conversation would mark the first crack in her certainty that I'd always be there. 2 weeks later, Renee sent a long message. "I'm sorry about what happened. Harper shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have made that comment. Let's talk about us." I stared at the message because one word stood out. Us. There had never been an us. I was a provider, not a partner. a convenience, not a teammate. A man she leaned on but never truly stood beside. So I replied, "There is no us, not anymore." The typing bubble appeared instantly. "So you're giving up on 8 years?" I paused before answering. "You gave up first. You just didn't think I'd notice. I blocked her after that. I don't regret it." Months passed. I heard updates through mutual friends and neighbors. Not because I asked, because people love a story, a summary of what they told me. Renee couldn't keep up with the mortgage without me. She tried refinancing and got denied. Her job hours were irregular. Her savings were thin. Harper deferred school but still needed tuition deposits she couldn't provide. The house went on the market. They moved into a small rental outside town. Harper took a part-time job she hated. Renee picked up night shifts. Their friends drifted away. People don't like being close to someone in crisis. For the first time in their lives, they had to face the weight I'd been carrying. They had to feel its absence. 6 months after I left, I got a letter. Handwritten, from Harper. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on the counter for 2 days because I wasn't sure I wanted whatever was inside. Eventually, I unfolded it. It was 3 pages. Messy handwriting, tear stains. She apologized. Not surface level, not manipulative. Real apology. The kind you can't fake. She wrote about how she never understood what I did until no one was doing it. How she saw her mother differently now. How she realized I had been the only stable thing in her life. How she treated me like a placeholder instead of a person. How she regretted her words every single day. She ended it with, "I don't expect you to come back. I just need you to know I see you now. I wish I had seen you when it mattered." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Not then. Not yet. Healing takes time. And I wasn't fully healed. My own life changed in ways I couldn't have predicted. I slept without tension. I laughed more. My shoulders no longer carried invisible weights. I made new friends. I traveled. I dedicated myself to my business. I learned hobbies I never had time for. And 1 year after leaving, I met someone, not romantically. Just a new neighbor named Callie, who had 2 dogs that liked to escape into my yard. She was kind, soft-spoken, thoughtful, the kind of person who said, "Thank you. Take your time. I appreciate that." Little things I hadn't realized I'd been starved for. We became friends. Later, maybe something more. But slowly, carefully, no rush, peacefully. A year and a half after I left, I got another letter. This one from Renee. She was subdued. She wrote about how losing the house broke something in her pride. How Harper resented her now for not defending me. How she realized she had pushed away the only man who ever treated her with respect. How life became harder than she ever imagined. Then, at the end, if there is even an ounce of space in your heart for forgiveness, please let me know. I read it twice. Then I put it in the same drawer as Harper's, and I left it unanswered. Forgiveness is one thing. Reconciliation is another. I forgave them both, but I never went back. Some doors should stay closed, even if the people behind them finally realized what they lost.